Let's play a little game. You're a TV executive, I'm so sorry, and you have a choice to make. Your #1 show is about to end next year, and you have to find a replacement. What do? Do you A, go through a bunch of pilots to see what other show might have some successful properties? Do you B, spin the show off and hope that it recaptures the same magic? Or C, panic! If you're NBC in 2003, you're going to pick C. Let me tell you all about it. This is the story of Coupling, NBC's failed Friends follow-up. I've been waiting to talk about this for 4 years, and now it's finally time. Here we go.
Isn't he perfect? Isn't he gay? Yeah, I'm bisexual.
It goes without saying that Friends was one of NBC's biggest hits that they've ever had. So big, in fact, that once it was starting to wrap up production in 2003, NBC started to get worried. There was going to be this giant Friends-shaped hole in their Thursday night lineup, and they had no idea what could fill it. They had to find something in order to keep must-see TV on top. By this time, there were already rumors that Joey was going to be spun off into his own series.
What's going through your mind?
Nothing.
But of course, in case that didn't work, or if it wasn't enough to recapture everything that Friends got them, NBC needed another surefire hit to bank on in order to crush the competition. But the question was, where would they go to find this sort of hit? Instead of doing what they did with Friends and relying on a bunch of nobodies in order to produce gold, they decided to go across the pond over to the UK. During this time, seeing straight-up foreign shows was not real easy over here in America.
Tell them you watch Doctor Who and can't regenerate without it.
And whenever you did find them, like say in the case of what 4Kids TV did with most anime they got, it was butchered to the point of being unrecognizable. Because obviously, we dumb Americans don't know what this is. The world doesn't look like this, it looks like this. And maybe sometimes this. Granted, in most of those cases, it came at the request of the original creators, but we already talked about that years ago, so let's just move on. What I'm trying to say is, around this time, if you were looking for some adult media that comes from other countries, chances are you're going to find it either on BBC America if it's from the UK, or you're going to find it remade for American audiences like Men Behaving Badly or Kath and Kim. Both of which were not very well received and didn't last too terribly long. But who cares? The days of Men Behaving Badly / It's a Man's World were long gone, and the new UK hits that were airing on NBC, like Dog Eat Dog and The Weakest Link, were doing just fine. And thus, NBC had set their eyes on the UK sitcom hit, Coupling, which was basically like Friends, but much, much, much raunchier. It's about 3 guys and 3 girls, and they like sex. And that's kind of the premise.
If I didn't have my heart set on sex with a man, you two would be in serious trouble.
Now, don't get me wrong, I think Coupling is a well-written and witty show. That's because the writing is witty and goes beyond the simple premise, the situations are offbeat, and the actors have chemistry.
Jeffrey.
NBC seemed to tune out after point 1 because their rationale was, hey, Friends is about 3 guys and 3 girls doing things in a city, and Will and Grace, another one of our hits, is known for pushing the envelope a bit when it comes to the sex stuff. Put them all together and you've got Coupling. Hey, let's get some of that. You'll see how well that turns out for them in a bit. NBC quickly snatched up the rights, and the original series creator Steve Moffat, along with Sue and Burl Virtue, were allowed to stay on as executive producers. Though that would be heavy on the executive part because according to Moffat, they had little to no control over Coupling USA. Case in point, when the pilot was announced to use the original UK script word for word, barring the setting, a couple last names of the characters, and some of the pop culture references that only the British audience would understand.
Think about Blair, right? Think about Blair. Is this country ready for a president?
And the best thing about George W. Bush is that we finally have a president with enough guts to stand up to the left.
Other than that, it would be exactly the same.
Did he say what he wanted? Not a word.
Did he say what he wanted?
Just that he wanted to talk.
think she knows you're gonna dump her?
Do you think she knows you're gonna dump her?
She ought to know by now. I've dumped her the last 4 times I've seen her.
Well, she should. I've dumped her the last 4 times I've seen her.
Now, this was common practice at the time, with most first seasons of foreign adaptations of shows using the original scripts. However, just because it was commonplace doesn't always mean that it was a success. That's what the first season of the Rob Schneider-led Men Behaving Badly adaptation did, and the less said about that show, the better. Now, while the original script for the pilot was the same, the tone was not. The original British wit and charm was meant to be replaced with typical American sitcomisms to help it fit in with the rest of the must-see TV lineup. They wanted every joke to be as subtle as a firecracker and have the quirkiness on each character cranked up to 11 because, well, the Friends cast was really colorful and strange. So why not have their replacement cast be even more so?
There is no chance of me sleeping with you, Patrick. Ever, ever, ever.
Okay, thanks.
When NBC saw the pilot, they were not entirely pleased with it. From what I can gather from what little has been released about this elusive pilot, the tone was trying to play a little more towards both sides. It was going to be exactly what NBC wanted, being a little over the top and all, but also tried to stay a little more in line with what the original had going for it, which made NBC very upset.
I saw the taping of the pilot. It was the Inferno episode, with very few changes from the original UK version.
They went on the warpath to make sure this didn't happen again. Pretty much all the crew was fired. This includes some of the cast. The new actors, who would comprise about half of the main cast, would consist of the typical, marketable, magazine-worthy actors who would always look good in any promotional material, but may or may not have been right for the part. I'm skipping ahead a little, but one of the main criticisms that Coupling USA got was that a vast majority of the actors seemed to be miscast.
Jane, hi, this is Steve.
Jane, this is Steve.
You are a beautiful, sexy, highly intelligent woman.
You are a beautiful, sexy, intelligent woman.
Instead of being given the role because they were right for it, it was because they thought, hey, this actor is attractive, let them be X. Ooh, this actor has a future ahead of her, let's let her be Y. What NBC failed to realize about their own mega hit Friends was that what made the show work wasn't just the writing behind it, but the actors who brought the writing to life. The casting process behind Friends was rigorous, with them almost not finding the right actor multiple times. But eventually, they captured lightning in a bottle 6 times, and that's when they knew they had a hit. Coupling went the opposite route. Get these roles filled as soon as possible, and make sure that the everyman average Joe type is nowhere near the cast. So, right off the bat, NBC's Friends follow-up is already going in the opposite direction of Friends. And don't worry, folks, it's about to get much worse. The new production crew knew that they had to fall right in line with what NBC wanted, so they went out of their way to make things as over-the-top as possible.
Does anyone know if that big ginger bloke's still working behind the bar here?
Hey, does a big red-headed guy still work the bar here?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Excellent.
Good.
He's an ex of mine.
He's my ex.
I think I still owe him a slap.
So I think I still owe him a slap.
For one, what about the giggle loop?
What's a giggle loop?
There's the giggle loop, of course.
What?
What's a giggle loop?
Despite the fact that they used the UK version scripts, they did need to have writers on staff.
That wasn't me.
This was not only to shorten the episodes, as the original aired on a BBC affiliate and therefore didn't have commercials to factor in, but also, since NBC had a new vision for this series, the new writers had to work around that and add their own raunchy Will and Grace-ish style jokes.
Jeff, do you have a condom? Then your voice goes high and you get all gay looking. Now you're just being silly.
They didn't necessarily care that every time a new joke that wasn't in the original came up, it stuck out like a sore thumb.
I respect women.
Who are you going out with?
Some freaky underwear model.
All that mattered was getting as many jokes in as possible, and bonus points if they were something that you couldn't get away with on Friends.
I let some busboys do some tequila shots out of my navel.
Love having your nipples played with.
Breasts! My nipples are cringing already.
Breasts! Do you have a condom?
The only problem was, that's not what they got. See, the writers were used to American standards of television, meaning that, in most cases, you can't get away with half the things that they have on in the UK. So, in comparison to the original jokes, the new American ones were a lot more toned down.
Well, there's no point going on about it now, is there? It's too late.
We went out for 4.5 years, you never said.
Aw, Steve. It's hardly my fault you missed the window.
Well, there's no point in talking about it now. It's too late.
We went out for a year.
Well, Steve, it's hardly my fault you missed the window.
This seems to be the point in time where Moffat started to have a major issue with Coupling USA. As he would later say in an interview, when you're comparing a massive, mainstream, brilliant NBC hit to a BBC Two sitcom from Britain, they're not the same thing. If you try to remake Coupling on the assumption it's exactly like Friends, you're going to end up with the wrong show. NBC wouldn't listen, however, and they decided to press on, advertising this as a bold, raunchy new step for the television giant, and how if you liked Friends, you'll love Coupling, am I right? Yeah, it's like how if you liked Toy Story, you'll love the Christmas light. Everyone knows that.
Christmas light is inside you.
As production went on, the crew decided to get a bit more original with what they were churning out. Different sources would state different levels of how Americanized the show would get, but the common theme seems to be the longer they were in production, the more the scripts would start to drift away from the original version. To the point where, word has it, some of the scripts were not based on any episode of the original Coupling whatsoever. Yeah, it's either Coupling fanfiction or Friends fanfiction we're in. Not a good sign. Then finally, there was enough footage for NBC to put their promos together, and the wider public was experiencing Coupling for the very first time. And contrary to what the expectations might tell you,
Coupling, the new comedy everyone's talking about.
The reactions were less than positive. Apparently, it became very clear from the promos that NBC did not understand what made the original work. Fans were greatly concerned about what they were going to see when they tuned in when it finally came on. At least those fans who didn't live in parts of Utah and Indiana, because some of their state affiliates thought that Coupling was a bit too raunchy for their tastes, so they just decided not to air it. But as for everybody else, when they tuned into NBC, they would be bombarded with coupling here, coupling there, coupling everywhere. This again shows how little NBC paid attention while Friends was on the air. It was a decent hit right away, yes, but like most mega hits in the history of television, it didn't become an explosive phenomenon overnight. It took some time to grow, to stumble through a few abandoned plot lines, and eventually find its footing, and when it did, people loved it. It just took a little time to grow.
I'm 10 years older now than I was when I started watching it, like everybody else here, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the end.
And while yes, Coupling might have started off as a big hit right away too, NBC clearly expected it to start as a phenomenon because they were advertising it as if it was really Friends Season 11. But once again, the only difference was that NBC was promoting it to be quote-unquote extreme.
What do you call people you go out with but don't sleep with?
Men.
And after this media blitz all over the summer of 2003, it was finally time for Coupling to make its grand debut. It had a perfect time slot in between Will and Grace and ER, and it was going to debut on September 25th, 2003, which, incidentally, was also the same night that Friends debuted its last season. So, how did it go?
Oh, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad.
Horrible.
September 25th, 2003 went down in NBC history as a night of high highs and low lows. Will and Grace and Friends did well as expected, and yes, NBC kind of got their wish with Coupling. It did become a phenomenon overnight. A phenomenon of disappointment and rage, but a phenomenon nonetheless. Okay, in all seriousness, it was bad. It was really, really bad. The ratings were decent-ish, but nowhere near what NBC was expecting, nor were they as high as the shows around it, meaning that to most people, Coupling would just be an extended bathroom break and nothing more.
Is that what that symbol means?
As for the viewer response and critical reviews, they fared even worse. Fans weren't happy, new viewers who never heard of Coupling weren't happy, critics weren't happy, and therefore, NBC wasn't happy either. Something had to be done to fix this Friends 2.0 show, but by then it was already too late. 10 of the 13 ordered episodes were already in the can. All they could do is watch in horror as the next 3 episodes would make it on TV and get steadily worse ratings. The first episode, the right one, debuted at an okay-ish for NBC primetime 15.3 million viewers.
Yay!
The next episode dropped to 12.93, the third to 10.74, then they went on hiatus for a week, and the last episode to make it to air ended up in 48th place at 9.56. After that free-falling nosedive of a plummet, NBC panicked. They thought about having a name change to rebrand the series, which did not work when they changed Men Behaving Badly to It's a Man's World, but ultimately, they decided to completely scrub Coupling off the schedule for 2 weeks, replacing it with reruns of Whoopi and Will and Grace.
Abs-absolutely.
The media insiders immediately smelled blood. They knew that Coupling was put out to pasture. But whenever NBC was questioned on it, it was just being postponed a little bit, maybe even retooled here and there. Don't you worry, Coupling is coming right back. It never came back. The rest of the 6 completed episodes never made it to air over here in the US.
Oh, it's so nice that you hang out with this weird-looking guy.
And the last 3 ordered episodes, they were never even produced. We don't even know how original they were, if they were even based on any of the original scripts whatsoever, or how far along they got in the process. NBC just wanted Coupling gone. And they were hoping that their next Friends successor, Joey, would be exactly what they were looking for. It would turn out to be anything but that's a story for someone else to cover. Right now, we're talking about Coupling USA.
I can't believe this.
It's also known that Coupling was never reran once it got taken off NBC, which is quite unfortunate for people who collect rare airings on TV because Coupling is nearly impossible to find. Keep in mind, I said nearly. Welcome, my friends, to the terrible world of Shelf 2820. From Castro Valley, California, this has episodes 1 through 3. Sans the pilot because the pilot never aired here, but still, I hate the show, but it's an important and also rare part of NBC history, so it's one of the prized jewels of my collection. What does that say about me? I don't know, and I don't want to know. I feel like it wouldn't be good. This show was so widely hated that no matter what NBC did, whether it be retooling, changing the marketing strategy, or even scrapping all the original episodes and trying something new, it was too late.
Oh, yes! Yes! The sauce came out perfect.
With reviews like this, and 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 this, there's no going back. See, the people who watched Coupling were not only comparing it to Coupling UK, but people were also comparing it to the high expectations that NBC had laid out and failed to meet. Like some commenters pointed out, the show not only lacked any wit or charm, but because it was on mainstream TV, it couldn't go as far as it wanted, and therefore there were certain advertisements that were raunchier, meaning that in every respect, Coupling USA was a flop. So much of a flop that BBC America decided to schedule episodes of the original series immediately after the NBC airings of Coupling USA, and was made to show people how badly we Americans screwed up. And it's true, when you can't even make it to Sweeps Week, and when you're only on the air for exactly a month, you done screwed up. But what if I told you that Coupling actually paved the way for The Office? That's right! The famous NBC sitcom/adaptation of the UK version in name only would not have existed the way it did if it wasn't for the bomb that was Coupling USA.
Can we just please pretend it never ever happened?
When The Office was coming over to America to be adapted, they went out of their way to not use the original scripts because Coupling ended up bungling them so badly. Whether it was because things got lost in translation or the executives didn't understand the material, they didn't want to run the risk of doing the same thing again. That's why most of the episodes, especially later on, would be their own original things.
Clean up on aisle 5.
They also decided to make the characters go in different directions, and get this, had actors that fit the characters instead of looked pleasing to test audiences. And look at it now. Years after it originally ended, it's one of the biggest cultural phenomenons of this generation. So yeah, thanks Coupling USA, they couldn't have done it without you. Coupling USA fell face first down the stairs so the office could run, huh? And that, my friends, is the tale of Coupling USA, the adaptation that was so bad that NBC President Jeff Zucker had to admit not too long after it came out, yeah, it sucked. And now I would like to leave you all with this quote from Heartwood Films director Sue Virtue. You say it's going to be all about sex, and it's going to replace Friends, a hugely successful show that's been on for years. But people don't want to be told what they're going to like. And those words still ring true today. Just goes to show, nothing ever really changes. Oh joy. Well folks, thanks for watching the video. What did you guys think? Have you ever heard of Coupling USA before? And if not, what did you think? Comment below and let me know because I'm always excited to hear what you guys have to say. Man, it has been a long time since I've recorded a Media Mementos video, and I mean a real one. Not that update I did on Christmas Day where I also gave you the script to my play adaptation of Meet the Feebles. I have not recorded a Media Mementos video properly since June 2024. It feels interesting to be back. Well, this is going to be the first of 8-ish videos for this year, and then I'm going to enjoy my retirement. So stay tuned, folks. There's a lot more excitement from here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
You know that I love you, and when we're together, you and me and my best friend and my ex-girlfriend and your ex-boyfriend with your best friend who are dating each other, and my best friend who once hooked up with you, and you know, I forgot where I was going with this, but it's getting a little freaky. Coupling, coming Thursdays to NBC.